Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel, and we got another recap for you. This one is Ready to Love Season 4, the finale, and we're going to talk about AJ and KYRA in this one. So before we jump into this, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so you'll be notified every time we post. If you like the video, smash that like button, and also feel free to drop a comment down in the comments section below. So let's talk about KYRA and AJ. And KYRA had the first option, which is for AJ to meet her mom and her friend that she considers her big sis, Corey. Now, one thing I will mention that KYRA said to them was she want to know how AJ is going to handle her heart. And I thought that was pretty interesting because he's definitely been straightforward and transparent on how he feels about her. But obviously there is something where she's not 100% on that. And with AJ, him meeting her mom, he says, is definitely important because, of course, she is influential on the decisions that KYRA make. Now, I know KYRA's a grown woman. She's not a teenager. But I guess she want her mom to chime in. So they're talking about where we going to sit down and intimidate him at and everything. But, he took it in stride. You can tell he was a little bit nervous. But the friend, Corey, she definitely went in with that question of, what do you think KYRA wants? And he definitely had to take a sip on that one. And especially being at the fact that KYRA had already been talking about him to them. Because the mom was like, I heard a lot about you too. And the friend, Corey, is also an attorney. So they're about to, I guess, go in when it comes to questioning AJ. But he said that they had a lot of things in common. He really didn't give an answer on, what her needs are. And, the other question was, are you fun? Are you romantic? I mean, they definitely was drumming in the questions one by one. And KYRA was just sitting over there. She was looking and watching and see how, AJ responded. And AJ definitely felt that he was being definitely interrogated. He said he felt like he was on first 48. That's how crazy this was. The mom also asked about how he handles disagreements, and he was saying, we could be able to talk situations out and be respectful. So, I totally agree with that. I'm glad that he took this in stride, even though he said he felt like he was on first 48 with beads of sweat on his head because he's under a lot of pressure here with these three. And after that answer that he gave the mom was really feeling him. She liked him. And KYRA's response to this was, I don't know what kind of magical powers AJ have that he could just say speak how he's speaking and women just be like, oh. And she was like, no, I need my mom to really give it to him and be stern with him. Now, a pivotal question I would say that mom did ask AJ is if they did get together, what happens next with the two of them? And AJ actually said he don't know. And that didn't sit right with KYRA. KYRA was like, it makes her feel unsure. Well, you kind of getting a return of what you're not, because she wasn't giving answers either. So she kind of know what that feels like at this point. And the mom was like, I love his emotional intelligence. But then Corey was like, she wasn't feeling that. She was like, I don't know if your representative have introduced the real representative to you. And I was like, wow. And definitely KYRA was more in agreement with Corey. So I'm like, okay, do you want to get to know this man or do you not want to be with him? It was just a weird interaction. I mean, the mom was sold. KYRA and Corey aren't, it seems like. Which, of course, KYRA says she's in a state of confusion, and her friend Corey is saying that he need to turn up his fire because he's still on low. So now it's AJ's turn with his mom, Cindy. And right before KYRA arrives, they have a little conversation about, especially the fact that he has a strong willed mom. And of course, she is as well. And as he said, speaking of the devil, here she is. He was worried about the fact that they were going to double team him and all that. This is just an awkward pairing. And it's more probably because of the energy that's coming off of KYRA, even her body language in that moment. It's just like friend vibes. I don't feel it with these two. However, they're still in this process. And one of the things that Mama Cindy asked KYRA is, what is it about you, obviously, that has intrigued my son, because she hasn't got any babies or grandbabies yet, as AJ is 38 years old, and that she's ready for one. Of course, AJ was like, man, I'm thinking you going to ask some real solid questions. You asking about grandbabies and things. I thought that was funny. I will say there was one question that was pretty interesting that Mama Cindy asked KYRA, is whether or not this is just one of his projects that he get engaged in and then disengaged in. And how do she think that's going to work and what their situation is. KYRA went right off the bat to let her know that her and AJ got off to a rocky start. Why? Because they dated before in the past and it didn't work out. Now, I don't know, but it was interesting. The next move that KYRA makes was to break down the fact that he didn't pay for dinner, that she had to pay for dinner, and it just didn't go well. And of course, that didn't sit well with his mama, because she felt that, that's not something that she would have had expected him to do. Now, I don't know what the situation was fully in the past, but whatever it was, it didn't sit right with KYRA. And my thing is, if it didn't click at that time, and I know they tried to make it work this time, I just think it's an epic fail at this point. She definitely wasn't happy with him about all of the details that KYRA put out on him. However, there's a lot of good details that happened during the season in regards to how AJ related to her. That never came up because the guy seemed to be a romantic. He put his feelings out there. He actually, that whole thing with saving her for being eliminated, but the only thing we got now, maybe she said a lot more. Maybe editing cut it out. There's a lot of times that happened that we don't get full scenes. But all that we did get in this scene was the negatives that she pointed out about AJ to his mother. So, it's interesting to see this whole interaction. I mean, the interaction between Corey, which is her friend, because her mom liked AJ, but it seemed that she had made a connection more with his mom on the negative stuff versus the positives. And even this whole conversation about, is this a new project instead of him being all in and being serious. So it's interesting that how this all went down. So now it's time for her decision. She meets AJ over at this romantic place, and she's still in a state of confusion. She actually said, I'm still not ready to state that I choose you. And she walked into this beautiful scene. AJ is a musician, so of course he's playing a piano for her. And I mean, it sounds beautiful, so obviously he know how to play. But the thing is, I mean, she's just smiling. She says something about, I want to tell AJ how much he means to me, but I don't know how he's going to respond to that. I didn't understand that statement because it didn't sound like if you tell somebody how much you mean to them, I think they would be happy to hear it. But he was definitely happy to see her. He told her, don't forget to tell your mom that I actually did the romance thing for you and that I played, and, complimented her on how beautiful she was. I honestly think that AJ is truly interested. She's just not there. She's just not there with him. And a lot of that is predicated because I honestly believe that her heart and mind is somewhere else. However, that option is no longer on the table. But I mean, that's what happens when you don't make a decision. And like she said in a few episodes earlier, in the middle of this season, I don't choose, men choose me. Well, the problem with that is that once you're chosen, you have to choose back. You got to make a decision of who you want to be with. And at this point, she still hasn't. Now, do I think that, because the issue is Jason. And go check out my other video because Liz and Jason has made their decision. But Jason is still in her mind. And because that option is no longer on the table, and obviously she made the choice to not continue to pursue AJ past this point, she chose herself. And she has every right to do that. I just honestly believe when she had that conversation with AJ back on the elimination of episode 10 going into 11, she should have probably just walked away from this situation altogether. I honestly think, based on what we saw, she stuck around to try to see if she can persuade Jason to go otherwise, but he was done. Liz was intentional. He connected with Liz, and they went with that. And the interesting thing about these two sets of couples, they're both a Scorpio Capricorn couple, which is a match. But in this particular coupling, I mean, she's a Cap. AJ is a Scorpio. It just didn't work. And unfortunately, this is what happens when, because I know she tried to put on the bikini to change Jason's mind, and it just didn't work. He decided to go with Liz, who was more intentional, and poor AJ, both of them left without a commitment, and they have to find love elsewhere. So honestly, he could have explored this thing with Alexis, which it looked like at the reunion. That's definitely a question. And then on the other side of this, she actually had 4 men at one point, and now she leaves with 0. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.